just started. Hi, welcome back to It's So Friday. We're so happy it's Friday over here. And we have big weekend plans for sewing and staying inside. Well, everyone else does. I get to help my brother move and it's supposed to rain, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But today, since we are looking at another rainy weekend here in Los Angeles, we thought it would be fun to work on a cozy baby quilt using our super soft line of flannel cozy cotton. We have 29 new designs that are shipping to stores this month, which means that we now have over 100 total SKUs in stores, and all of these cottons are just super soft and perfect for the little kids in your life and for yourself if you like flannels and warm things, which I do. The project that we're going to work on today is called Springtime Squares, and it is a quilt that comes together really quickly. It's a free download on the Robert Kaufman website. You can get there by following the link in this post, and as you can see, it makes a really simple, cute quilt that turns out 50 inches by 50 inches, and you'll finish the top in like less than 25, maybe 30 minutes. Might take me a little bit longer since we're doing this live on camera. So once you've downloaded the pattern, the first thing that you're going to do is decide which layout you want your colors in for the progressive, starting in the middle and then working their way out. And the cutting directions just tell you what size square you need to cut. The cutting on this is super simple. It's a great beginner project. All you'll do is you'll be cutting 2 squares in each of the sizes and 1 square for the center. So I've designated this SKU as my center square, and I've gone ahead and I've cut all of the next few rows of squares as the pattern directed for the sizes. So I have, you can see the right sides are together, or wrong sides are together, so you can see the right sides on 2 of my squares. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler and you're going to cut from point to point, just like this. And what that will give you then is 4 half square triangles, or 4 triangles that you'll use on your piecing. So just real quick, I'm going to cut all of them at once so that it's quick and easy, but just be really careful to not lose your rotation of which triangles you want in which space, since they will be by size, and if you guess wrong then you will have to cut new pieces. So I'm just going to make sure I'm laying them out in order. You should be able to tell though, just because they'll get bigger as they get further out from the center of the quilt. When you're starting to cut your squares initially, it's good to have a self-healing mat and the longest clear acrylic ruler that you can find, because what's going to happen is you'll have to cut a 27-inch square. And so for the smaller squares it's kind of easy because it's like a 7-inch square and a 9-inch square, and even the, I think, 14 or 20-inch square is a little easier. But when you get to a 27-inch square, it can be kind of tricky, and so you just have to make sure that you're taking your time, do it one at a time, and just cut along one side, then turn the other side. Make sure you're using your lines on your mat for determining how long your piece of fabric is, because probably you won't have a ruler that's a 27-inch square, so you'll need to really rely on your mat. When you get to some of your larger squares like this and you're trying to cut point to point and you want to make sure that you're not messing it up, but you only have a small cut space, what I like to do is I still have my 2 layered on top of each other, and I'm going to fold corner to corner on the corners that I wanted to cut from here to here. And now I just can line up my ruler on this folded edge and line it up with the points over here, and that's how I know that I'm getting a straight cut across the whole square. And so then you'll see now I have perfectly cut big giant square. And this isn't even the most giant of the giant squares. We're going to do that again, only this time we're going to do it using the biggest of the squares. And so you'll see these ones, I haven't actually put them up next to each other. They're a really big square, but I'm going to just take both of them, lay them right sides on top of each other, and again, not this way, but going point to point so that you have kind of a big triangle like this, and then you're going to cut from here to here. So Okay, it's all lined up. It's looking pretty good. And if this one isn't perfect, it's probably okay, because you could always square up your quilt at the end, and since this is going to be the outside border, you could just be like slightly smaller than 60 inches or 50 inches. No one's gonna count. No one will know. Okay. I had to make sure that I like pressed down pretty hard on my rotary cutter and my ruler so that I didn't get any catches. So now I have all of my big triangles, and now what you're going to do is, I'm gonna set my ruler where it's easily accessible. Starting with your smallest triangle and your center square, you need to mark your midpoints on each side of your center square, as well as each side of your triangles. So let's see how we do that. So for the center square, the easiest way to do it is just going to be to fold it in half and kind of pinch here to create a little indent, and then using an erasable pen, just mark where that little indent is. So it doesn't need to be a big line, just enough so that you can see it, because what you're going to do is match your midpoint in your triangle and then line those midpoints up, and that's how you're going to know where to sew. So just did my little pinching, and I have my marks down again, and you can't see it probably because it's too far away, but you just have tiny little marks here. And now I'm going to do the same, well, not the same thing, but I have to mark the midpoints on all my triangles. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my ruler with the flat edge here, going straight up so that the edge hits the point. Let me move this so you can see what I'm doing. So lining up the line of the ruler and the point. Can you see this? Okay. Yeah. And then you're just going to mark at the base of each one, and that's going to be the center. So let's just, I don't know why I'm holding this cap. All right. Okay. And we're going to mark. And we're going to mark.
If you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to ask them, and I'll do my best to relay to Elizabeth.
Or if you just want to say hi and tell us where you're from, you could do that too. It's always kind of fun to see who's tuning in and from where.
Susan asks, could you also fold point to point?
You could do the exact same thing. So instead of doing the ruler measure to mark, you could fold it in half and squeeze. And it might be easier. I guess it just kind of depends on what's easier for you. I feel like on the bigger triangles it might get a little trickier to do that. On the little ones, it's pretty easy just to lay them on your mat because you have the space and you can. But on the bigger ones it might be better to fold. I don't know, I didn't even think about doing the fold. There
was more.
Oh.
Fold point to point, press in a crease, then refold the other point to point, so you would have a crease to follow for the cut.
On your center square, or are you talking about for, you could do that on your center square. I guess you could do it on all of your points too. I always kind of try and avoid extra ironing if I can, just because I don't know, I kind of like I like just getting straight to the sewing, like even marking for me sometimes at home. I'll be like, I should really mark my corners, but then I have to stop what I'm doing, so I just eyeball it. So I've done 2 of these now, and I'm just going to set this aside and start sewing because sewing is more fun. So taking your center square and your smallest set of triangles, what you're going to do is right sides together, match that red dot with the red, or the red line with the red line that you had on the other side, and I guess we'll pin. Let's just pin real quick so that we could do both sides and then sew. So you'll pin on one side so you have this attached here, and then on the other side take another triangle, match the lines, and sew. And the nice thing about working with flannel is that flannel isn't as slippery once you put it on top of each other. It just kind of stays there really nicely, almost like you were sticking your fabric to your design board. So it's kind of nice. All right, we're sewing with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're just going to sew along the whole seam, taking out our pins as we go. And repeating that on the other side of the square. so now what you have is 2 of your sides sewn on, and what you're going to do is you're going to press towards the darker material just so you don't see it on the outside. And the reason we're going to press here is so that we can trim off the little extra wings and attach the neck sides. So you'll see that on the tops we have these little bits of extra fabric, and we just want to trim so that it's flush with this square line. So using our ruler, let's just line that up and trim real quick. And trim. Oh, and since I marked with an iron pen and then ironed, my mark went away, so I am just going to fold this to find my center line again. And I am going to remark because it makes it a lot easier to see. There it is. Okay. Now taking your last 2 small triangles, you're going to repeat the steps that you just did there, and this time I'm not going to pin just because the flannel stays really nicely. And you'll see, at least on this first one, since you trimmed off those extra wings, your points will match at a perfect 1/4 inch. And so your seam will start right where that fabric meets, which means that you're going to have a perfect point on the center of your quilt, which is always nice. Everyone likes having those perfect points. I guess not everyone likes it, but many of people like it. Okay, and now I'm going to press again. And what you'll notice is that this quilt is going to grow really, really fast. So just even after attaching the first layer of triangles, we've already got a significantly larger square. So on these further rows, instead of marking it, I'm just going to look at where my seams intersect and use that as my point. And I'm going to just check and make sure that the directions don't tell me to trim or to square up. And square up the new square. Trimming excess fabric 1/4 inch from the point. Alright, so it does say to square up, so we have to square up. So what you'll see here is that you have about a 1/2 inch between your point and your edge of fabric. You want to make this so that there's only a 1/4 inch from the point to the edge of your fabric. And what that will do is mean that your points will continue to hit at a perfect point and the next seam will nest right up into them. You could keep doing it like this, but then you won't have those nice crisp points. So to square this up, just line up your ruler with one side. I'm using the dots on my ruler, and then make sure that the dot is hitting at the top of that 1/4 inch and that it's looking pretty even, and then just square up. And so you will want a trash can close by so that you can put all this extra little cutoffs and stuff in there instead of throwing it on the ground. Especially if you have like a dog or a cat, and the dog or cat likes to come into the craft room and eat some fabric like mine does sometimes. I always have to be really careful if I hear her little nails clicking on the floor in my room. I'm like, woo, what did you do? What are you after? Fabric isn't your friend.
Lynette just asked how to start the video from the beginning. When this is all through, it'll be uploaded onto our page and you can watch it from the beginning. Go ahead.
Okay, so now I've squared up, and so now my points are just about a 1/4 inch from the end. And I'm going to just take my next layer. I've already marked the centers. I'm going to line them up with where the point hits. And so, woohoo! The sewing part is always the best part. I also really like that on this machine you can control how fast you're sewing. So if you're comfortable with it, you can turn it on really fast and it'll just go. And if you need a little bit more time to get control of your fabric, you can adjust it to a slower pace so that it feels more comfortable for how you're comfortable working. Okay, now we're going to repeat that process on the other side. And I think it shifted a little bit in that last one, so I'm gonna just pin right in the middle there. but not on these sides. Okay. I think pinning is such an interesting personal topic. Like some people really like pinning and they pin everything. Some people pin sometimes and some people never pin. I have a friend who just uses Wonder Clips, and she does Wonder Clips for everything and doesn't pin anything. And it works for her, so. But I've never been able to do that. I pin occasionally. Okay. Okay, so I think I messed up here where this side is really clearly longer than this side, and so I'm going to tear that seam out because I want my points to hit nicely. Nah, I'm not going to tear that seam out. I'm just going to keep going. I think it'll be okay. We'll find out. Okay. I'm going to line that up. I'm going to pin. That's what happens if you don't pin, though. Sometimes your seams don't turn out perfect. But you know what? It'll probably be okay. We're going to square up anyway. No one will know. Okay. We're sewing. We're sewing. We're stopping just before that pin so we don't accidentally sew over our pin and break a needle. Okay. And then we're going to repeat that same step on the other side. Sewing always makes my nose itch. I think it's the fabric dust. Sewing, sewing, sewing.
What iron is that, Elizabeth? What? What iron is that?
That's an Aliso iron. So it's a touch-sensitive iron. It has these little smart feet. You can see them go up and down. And so what that means is that I can leave the iron flat, and when I'm not touching it, it'll automatically stand up. It's really great if you have like arthritis or weak wrists, because you're not constantly doing the repetitive motion of picking up your iron. But it is hard to break the habit. So if you've worked with an Aliso and then you go back to a regular iron, you have to like be very conscientious to not leave your iron flat, because other irons aren't smart and won't pick themselves up. Ask me how I know that. All right, so now we've attached our next round, and again, we just want to square up so that our points are 1/4 inch. And so, again, just lining up the ruler to the edge of one side, making sure that it looks pretty good on the other side too, and then trimming, and repeating that process on all 4 sides. And you might be able to see that my top is kind of not laying flat right now. That's because I'm not using any water in my iron, and I forgot to spray it because I'm out of habit. Whew. But I'm gonna iron it in a second. It'll all lay down nicely. Okay. 3. And so even though I didn't trim up that last side, or even though I didn't tear out that last side and I wasn't sure it would work out, but I was pretty sure it would work, it did actually work out just fine because of the fact that we are squaring up all the sides. And when you're squaring up, just be really careful that that your ruler isn't shifting, because that's how it's easy to make a wrong cut, and then you'll be bummed. Okay, so I'm just gonna real quick iron this before I keep adding some layers. Spraying a little bit of water on it. And now the other half. And another good alternative if you're ironing, we like to use flatter a lot. It's a spray starcher alternative, so it helps keep it nice and flat. And flatter comes in a lot of different scents, so it's nice. So this is with 2 of our triangle units added on, and next we're going to just mark and get ready for the next. We only have 3 more layers left, so just real quick.
3 more layers.
But look how fast it's coming together. Like if you were to make a 60 by 60 inch quilt anywhere else. Okay, 50 by 50, not 60 by 60. Okay, so now I am just folding point to point and just pinching a little bit, putting some pressure on, and then marking along that line so that I can see where it is later. Oh look, there's some tape on the back of this one. Okay, and pinch. All right, and while we're doing this, I'm gonna do the second to last one at the same time, because why not? We're already in this whole like turn, pinch, mark system thing. Okay. And the bigger ones, it's kind of tricky just because they're so big, so it can be kind of hard to figure out how to make them work if you're working in a smaller space. You know, I have a big table at home, but I managed to put a lot of stuff on my table, so then I work on a spot that's like 12 inches wide, even though I have a table. If I cleaned it and could keep it clean, then it would be an entirely different story. I'd have like all this space. But I look through my fabric and I leave my fabric out, and I look through my patterns and I leave my patterns out, and I look through my zippers and I look through my buttons, and just everything ends up in like a really nice, beautiful pile of stuff. I don't know if anyone else organizes like that. That's how I organize. Okay.
Sandra's asking if you wash your flannel before you use it.
You can. We are not washing this. I feel like it's probably the same question of if you pre-wash your regular fabric too. It's your preference and your choice. This just is, I feel like it's nice and easy to sew with as is. And then when you wash it, it'll crinkle up just like, maybe not just like a cotton would, but would be similar to how a cotton would crinkle up. So, yeah. Okay. Going back to sewing. And this is a repetitive pattern, in case you haven't noticed that yet. It's the same step for all 4 sides for the entire quilt. But that also means that all you have to do is learn how to do it once, and then just keep doing it with longer and longer seams, which isn't too bad. And just remember, when you go from attaching the first one, you want to attach the one across the way, because if you attach one on the side, it's going to throw off your seams and stuff. And this way you don't have to, you can do 2 and then stop and press, and then do the next 2. So you can see we've got the next 2 on. We're just going to press them real quick. I am going to remember to use water this time. That does help. And I know in the beginning I pressed towards the dark because the dark was the next layer that I was adding on, but I'm actually just pressing all of the layers out now so that the points don't get too much additional seam bulk behind them. I guess it's your preference. Like, if you wanted to press your seams open, you could. If you didn't care and you were going to press them every which way, that's totally fine too. But it does lay nice and flat when you press them all consistently going out. Oh, and I should take off these corners. I must have done it on the last row, even though I don't remember right now. Okay, so I'm going to clip those guys off. Whoop, that was not flush. Okay, and then on the other side, whoa. Okay, and on the other side, just doing the exact same thing. And this is not squaring up, you're just taking off those extra little bits, those wings. All right, now we're going to attach the next 2. And again, just lining up that mark with the center where your point is, and pinning, and then sewing. over here. Line up right in the center and pin.
You're so good at that, Elizabeth.
It's the flannel. It makes it look easy. The flannel just doesn't shift, so once you kind of have it lined up, you really don't have to fiddle with it too much to get it where you want it to go.
Janet is asking if you always stand when you sew.
I don't. I sit down at home. But this is a taller desk, and so we have a chair, but when I sit, it's kind of hard to like reach the pedal and move, and so here I stand and sew.
We also have a question about what sewing machine you're using.
I'm using a Janome 8900. I really like it. It's what I use at home as well, and it is really versatile. I can do everything that I want to do with it. So I can sew garments and quilts, and I quilt a lot of medium to large size quilts on it as well. It has a good sized throat space, so you can really get a whole quilt in there. I feel like the biggest that I've done is probably like 70 by like 90 or so. So definitely gives you a lot of freedom to work on, you know, any kind of project. And then it also has a ton of different stitches, so you can do like zigzags and tons of different buttonholes, and you can program it to write things out, and it's a really smart machine. Okay, I'm gonna have to move this smart machine to trim this whole thing, because, you know, we're getting big now. So now we have, it's a good sized quilt. The other thing that's nice about this project is that you could decide at any time that this baby quilt is big enough for the baby you want to give it to, and you could just stop sewing. So I don't actually have enough ruler space to finish this, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start in the middle, trim, and then move to my other side and just line up along my line of that I've already cut again, and then cut so that I'm getting a consistent cut. The other thing that you could do is you could fold it in half and line up, but I'm not super confident with all my sides being the same right now, so I don't really want to do that. Okay, so just lining that up again, making sure it's looking pretty good, and trim a bit, and then move to the other side. Sorry, machine. Okay. And repeating that on side 3. This is very exciting. This is the most exciting part of It's So Friday today, is all the squaring up.
Are you ever nervous you're gonna hurt yourself with your rotary cutters?
No. Are you asking me or is someone asking?
I'm asking you.
No. I have hurt myself with a rotary cutter before, but I feel like the more that you work with rotary cutters, the more confident that you get with them. This one is really great because it does have this safety plastic that comes back, so the blade doesn't actually come out until you press down on it, which helps reduce the chances that you're going to hurt yourself. But the big thing is just, you know, learning to keep your hand away from the edge and not keeping your finger, you know, in front of where your blade is going to go. And once you've mastered that, then it's mostly okay. Okay, so now that I've squared this up, it's time to go on to the next round. I know, we're not even done yet, but you could be. So you could decide that you just have a tiny baby and this baby just needs this little quilt, and you could just quilt that up, and there you go. Or you could just keep going. We're just gonna keep going. For the sake of Sew Friday, we're gonna make this quilt. It's gonna be big. All right. So, lining this up and sewing that long seam again. Making sure that my fabric is staying where I want it to. And I'm stopping again just before my pin and unpinning, just so I don't have any pin problems.
We're still just under 30 minutes and you're pretty far along.
Yeah, I'm almost done. I mean, we have 7 seams left until the quilt top is finished, and they are big seams, but it's not too much piecing to get the size of quilt that we're gonna get. Okay. Plus, if you were sewing this up at home, you probably would have already marked everything. And it just would have been a process of just like laying it out and going for it. But this is especially great, like, you know, you get invited to a last minute baby shower and you want to have something to do or to send, and you can create this quilt in like, you know, 30 minutes or so for the top, and then just quilt it really simply, or really go all out and do some elaborate free motion quilting, whatever fits your style, and then you have a great handmade gift. All right, so now we're going to press again. Being careful to press my seams out. And the longer the seam, the kind of more difficult it is to just make sure that you're not accidentally turning the seam under and pressing it every which way when you actually start ironing. So just you can feel for it to make sure it's laying flat, but then I would also just check it and make sure that it's laying flat. Oh, thought I was going to fall over there.
We have a couple questions.
Okay.
Do you starch your fabric before you cut it, since you have such a large bias edge, or are you not too concerned with it?
I'm not too concerned with it. I don't starch my fabric usually. You could always iron with some flatter if you wanted to. I don't have a lot of experience with starch, so I don't know how it would respond with a flannel. It might be fine, but...
And someone else also asked, are you using the 1/4 inch foot to sew?
I'm not, but I know, because I sew with this machine at home, I know where my needle has to be placed using the specific foot to achieve a 1/4 inch seam, so I know that I'm working with a 1/4 inch seam. I've learned the hard way that if I'm sewing on a strange machine, I should use the 1/4 inch foot, because without knowing your own machine, it can be tricky to gauge the 1/4 inch foot on someone else's machine. Okay, and then again lining all these up, and we've marked the mid pieces or the centers, and we are
So close.
almost ready to sew. I know you can like see it. You just see that the pieces are almost finished and that the quilt is getting really big. That too. Okay, and we sew.
Are you using as a follow-up question?
I would have to look. I want to say it's like the J or the H or something. It has a little bit of a clear view so you can see what's going on. Let me see if it's printed in here. It's the A foot for this machine. So if you have a Janome 8900 and you are using the A foot and you have your needle set all the way to the far right, that's what I use as a scant 1/4 inch at home, and it works. Okay. Ooh, okay. It's getting really big and hard to manage. I know. It's like a heavy lifting here. Let me just say, I feel like quilting should count as exercise, especially when you're actually like free motion quilting and you're pulling an entire quilt and bedding and backing through the machine. That's arms day right there. Yeah. Okay. We're almost there. It's like halfway through the seam. No, they're okay. All right. So now, again, we're just going to press. Whoa, that lid was coming off. That wouldn't have been funny. Maybe it would have been
pretty funny.
It wouldn't have been funny if it like hit electricity though, and then that would have been like, ooh, just kidding. Bye, Elizabeth. All right. So I could tell that the seam tucked under a little bit, and I could feel it when I was ironing. So I just kind of reached under and fixed it so that it was laying flat, because I don't want any of that extra seam bulk. And yeah. Oh, and my houndstooths are like kind of going the same direction. I wasn't paying very much attention to that. These two are going the same direction. So if you have a directional fabric, you'll want to take a look at that maybe. You might not want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. But it looks pretty good. See, so far we've got this quilt and you're like, oh man, that's quite the quilt. We're not done. We're going to square up again and add the very last border. So again, using the part of the way ruler strategy here, which definitely takes a little bit longer. Sorry, iron, excuse me.
You just apologize to your iron?
Yes. Okay. And that long strip. Now I'm going to square up again. Okay. Matching my sides, making sure that it's at that 1/4 inch point. And sewing, not sewing, cutting. So I didn't sew all the way there, or I didn't cut all the way there, so I just had to do like a follow-up cut real quick. And we're gonna do this. 4 more rotary cuts. 4 more. Okay.
You got this.
Yeah. Okay.
Another question about this flannel. This is new from our Cozy Cotton collection. We have over 100 SKUs total, but there are about 29 new color pattern, I don't know,
Designs.
Combinations that I was trying to say, that are heading to stores now. So most of those are new. There are a few that have been around for a little while, but yeah.
Okay. 1 more square upside and then we're ready to add the last row. Already there. Almost.
Just stay positive.
Yeah. I'm positive that we will finish this quilt top during Sew Friday today. I'm telling ya. It's a very exciting prospect. Whole quilt top. Okay, throwing away all those extra pieces. I have my squared up quilt top, and it did take off probably like 1.5 inches on that one, maybe just 1 inch or so. Okay, now we're going to get these big pieces. Whoa. And they're really big, so again, we're just gonna fold in half and mark on the dot. And I'm folding right sides together so I can see the little indent. Just got my pen. And mark. And then again, fold. And poke. And mark. And okay. Got it handled, don't worry. Okay. Fold, mark, and make that line, and fold. So you can see how if you'd done this all at once, you would just be able to keep sewing right now, or you could do it as you go. It depends. Sometimes for me, like doing all this prep work up front isn't the fun part, and so then I just put that off. But sometimes it's nice to have everything just already laid out and ready for you so you can just jump right in and sew. Okay, now because this piece is so big, I think I will maybe pin more than just the once. Huh. Maybe, yeah, okay. I'll pin like 3 times. Okay. I'll pin about halfway just because it's such a long seam, and then I'll pin another halfway here. Okay. And now, okay. Now, lining up and sewing. And so I can already tell that this row is kind of shifting a little bit more than the other ones were because it's so big. So I feel like it was a good decision to pin the multiple times. Probably could have even pinned a little bit more. Probably still won't for the next few ones, but wouldn't hurt. Okay. All right. And now to repeat that on the other side.
Gonna be one cozy baby.
This baby is gonna be super warm and happy. I don't know what baby this is actually going to right now though. Maybe yeah, we'll take it home and quilt it and give it to her.
Hilarious. The prospect of that. I'll let you take it home and quilt it.
I already gave my nephew a quilt.
It's true.
Okay. Oh my gosh, it's so big. Okay. Just hit that halfway mark. Alright guys, we're going to press this and then we'll only have 2 seams until we're done. It's happening. Okay. I'm going to press it with the seams going towards the outside again, using some water. And seam turned under a little bit. Okay. Now, I know sometimes you get to this point and you're just kind of like, I don't know about this. I don't want to finish it anymore because I'm pretty done. How about if I make the quilt just be done now? But you kind of can't because then it wouldn't be a rectangle. It would be a really weird shape. So you still have to, or it wouldn't even be a rectangle, it wouldn't even be a square. So you kind of have to do the last 2 seams. But don't worry, it's only 2 seams. It's totally doable. Okay, so on this one I can tell the seams are curling, so I'm going to turn it to the back and then press from the back just so that I can see what's happening here. Tell the seams to do what I want them to do. And now we're going to again cut off those wings. And because this quilt is so big, I'm just going to use you know, one at a time and not try and get across the whole thing at once.
Kathy is asking what we're going to back it with.
Well, we're not going to back it live on the show right now, but if we were, I maybe would back it with another piece of cozy cotton. It's super soft, so it would be a really nice soft quilt back. Or you could get some cuddle and put cuddle on the back, which is like really soft, but it's like a different texture. It still quilts up like a dream though, and would be really lovely on this. Or you could just take like a Kona cotton print that you like and put it on the back. You could really do anything. It gives you a lot of freedom. Okay, we've squared it up. It's time to do those last 2 giant pieces. We got this. We're so close. Okay. Lining up that point in the middle, pinning there, maybe giving it just a about halfway pin, and then another about halfway pin, and then sewing. Oh, to that first pin. Whoops. Stop. Oof.
There's a question if you need to use batting with this material.
Yes. I would ask Nicole.
Hey, Nicole.
Yes, you should use batting with it. It's kind of like on that show where they'd ask you questions and then you had to give them answers, and you could phone a friend. I'm phoning my friend. She's off screen. Huh? Oh, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's the show. Ask the audience. What do you guys think? Okay, one more scene. Okay, this is a really big quilt. But it comes together so fast, so it's totally worth it. Okay. My nose is extra itchy because of all the fabric dust. Okay. Okay. Pin, pin. Whoa, pin. And sew. Pin, 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 sew. Pin, 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 sew. It's like our song for this So Friday episode.
It's a great song. The size of the quilt is about, what is it, 50 by 50?
50 by 50.
Around 50 by 50.
But again, if you wanted to make it smaller, all you would have to do is really leave off like one set of the triangles, and you could have a significantly smaller quilt. So it just depends on what you have time for and what you're looking to do. Okay, we're almost done. I just need to press those last two seams, and then we will have a giant quilt top, which is pretty impressive. I'm press it this way because I can't see the seams and it's too big. Okay. So okay. Almost done. Almost done. And just like that, we are done. Look at this quilt top we've managed to make. Oh, it's so big I can't even scooch it out over the table. Okay, look at that.
Let me back up a little bit. Maybe we can get a better shot. Oh yeah, great. You guys get the idea.
It's really impressive.
Yeah,
I'm not tall enough
been,
to stand back and hold it.
I don't know how long it's been,
But yeah,
48 minutes.
And that's, you know, with talking and doing it live on air, and that's a little different. But if you want to zoom back in, I'll show you some of the new designs that we have coming out. So these are some of our new colors or designs. So we have this cute little flower, and this little like trellisy blobby guy. He's really cute. And a polka dot, and a houndstooth. You can lay them all out like this so you can see them. And again, these are shipping to your shops now, so you know, if you want a quick weekend project, you should go out and get some cozy cottons and make your own quilt.
Right,
you saw how fast it comes together.
We're talking over each other, my bad. The pattern is available for download on our website, and the link is in this post.
And as a reminder, it's called Springtime Squares, and the picture looks like this.
Woo! Have a good
And you can
weekend,
make it in
everybody.
all the colors. Bye!